Imagine finding like a bag of unmarked cash just buried out in the woods.
Oh, okay.
And not just a small amount, right? We're talking life-changing generational wealth.
Right, the kind of money that just changes everything.
Exactly. So how long do you think it would take for just the mere proximity to that money to completely rewrite your personality, to, dissolve your empathy and replace it with absolute arrogance?
Well, according to a 2,000-year-old Buddhist text, the answer is the exact second your footsteps on the dirt above it.
Which is just wild to think about.
It really is. It suggests this fascinating, almost physiological view of morality. I mean, we tend to think of character traits like greed or humility as these fixed internal settings.
Yeah, like you're either a good person or a greedy person.
Exactly. But what you are describing from the texts implies that our moral baseline is actually terrifyingly porous. It's subject to immediate change based purely on, like, our environmental coordinates.
And that is the perfect framework for what we are unpacking today. Welcome to the deep dive. We are looking at a stack of excerpts from the Jataka Tales.
These are revered ancient narratives, right?
Right. They chronicle the past lives of the Buddha, the Bodhisattva, as he cycles through existence as a king or a hermit, an animal, even a tree sprite.
But we aren't really reading these as religious history today, are we?
No, not at all. Our mission today is to treat this material as like a behavioral data set because these ancient authors were essentially mapping the mechanics of human psychology, our blind spots, our cognitive biases, and our just spectacular capacity for self-sabotage.
Yeah, the stories really strip away that illusion that we are rational actors. They operate like stress tests for the human ego.
Oh, I like that. Stress tests.
Yeah, they isolate specific variables like sudden wealth or validation or temptation, and then they just watch the social contract collapse in real time.
Which brings us right back to that bag of cash in the woods. Or, well, more accurately, the Nana Jataka. So there is this old squire who realizes his death is imminent, and he's concerned his young wife is just going to squander his estate on a new husband instead of, passing it to his infant son.
A pretty common anxiety, I'd
As
imagine.
for sure. So he takes his slave, Nanda, out into the forest and buries his treasure. And he instructs Nanda to reveal the location to the son when the boy comes of age.
So it's a mechanism to bypass the immediate heirs and secure the wealth for the next generation.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it requires immense trust in Nanda.
Exactly. So years pass, the squire dies, and the son eventually asks Nanda to take him to the inheritance. They go into the forest. Now pay close attention to the geography here because this is where it gets crazy.
Okay.
The moment Nanda's physical body stands directly over the buried gold, his entire personality just fractures. He becomes vicious.
Wow.
Yeah. He glares at his master's son and just starts spewing insults. He says, like, "You servant of a slave wench's son, how should you have any money here?"
That is quite the pivot.
Right. But the son, he just ignores the abuse and says, "All right, let's go home." And as soon as Nanda steps off that specific patch of dirt, his arrogance totally vanishes. He reverts entirely to being a compliant, polite servant.
That's fascinating.
And this cycle just repeats every single time they return to the woods.
See, that spatial element is what elevates this from just a simple fable about greed to a really profound psychological observation. Because think about it. Nanda hasn't spent a single coin.
Nope.
He hasn't gained any actual social mobility yet. It reminds me of the psychological concept of state-dependent memory, where your ability to recall information is tied to the physical or emotional state you were in when you learned it.
Oh, right, like studying with a specific song playing or whatever.
Exactly. But here we are seeing state-dependent morality. His empathy and his social conditioning are literally tied to his physical proximity to leverage.
Wait, so is it just the proximity to leverage, or is it like the illusion of ownership? Because Nanda knows the secret. For those few seconds standing on the gold, he is the sole gatekeeper of that wealth.
That's a great point.
I mean, if you've ever felt yourself get a little sharper, maybe a little meaner just because you suddenly held the upper hand in a negotiation, or even just a petty internet argument, you've experienced the exact Nanda effect this text is warning about.
And, a text provides a beautifully pragmatic solution to that effect, too.
Right, the Bodhisattva steps in.
Yeah, acting as an old family friend, he advises the son. He says, the spot at which Nanda stands to abuse you is the place where the money is buried.
It's so practical.
It really is. The advice isn't to, argue with Nanda or try to morally reform him. The instruction is just to wait until he starts shouting and then physically pull him from his perch.
Ground him.
Exactly. Separate the man from the environmental trigger that is distorting his reality.
Pull him from his perch. But okay, what happens when you can't just pull someone off the gold? I mean, if a few buried coins can distort one man's empathy so violently, what happens when you introduce infinite post-scarcity resources into an entire population?
Well, the Vedanta Jataka answers that exact question.
Hmm.
And the outcome is systemic contagion. We move from the localized ego trip of one guy to the total collapse of societal structure.
It reads like an ancient thriller,
Oh,
honestly.
absolutely.
So a Brahmin possesses this highly specific astrological charm. If he recites this spell while looking at the sky during a certain celestial alignment, he can literally make the seven things of price, so gold, diamonds, pearls, just rain from the heavens.
Quite the party trick.
Seriously. But this Brahmin and his pupil are captured by a ruthless band of 500 robbers. The pupil begs his master not to use the charm, but the Brahmin is terrified. He just wants to buy his immediate physical safety, so he recites the spell.
So he introduces infinite, unearned wealth into an environment governed by violence and scarcity.
Right.
From a behavioral economic standpoint, you might assume that fulfilling the robber's ultimate desire, which is wealth, would pacify them, give them the money, and the violence stops.
I mean, logically, that makes sense, but the exact opposite happens. The rain of treasure triggers this massive psychological short circuit.
It really does.
A second band of 500 robbers arrives, sees the first group hoarding diamonds, and they demand a cut. The first group refuses, and they tell the newcomers to just capture the Brahmin and make him rain more treasure.
But the stars don't align like that every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Brahmin confesses the stars won't align again for another year. So the second group just murders the Brahmin on the spot. And then the two bands of robbers turn their weapons on each other. We're talking 1,000 men slaughtering each other over a magical windfall.
They immediately revert to zero-sum thinking. Even though the wealth literally fell from the sky and cost them absolutely nothing to acquire, the sudden introduction of it destroys whatever fragile social contract existed among the thieves.
It's just total chaos.
We are essentially watching the tragedy of the commons violently accelerate. They fight until only 2 men are left standing.
Just 2 guys left out of 1,000. So they drag this massive hoard of treasure deep into the jungle. One stays to guard the loot, while the other goes to a nearby village to procure food.
And you can see where this is going.
Oh, yeah. Sitting there alone, the guard decides that splitting the treasure 50-50 is just unacceptable. He resolves to murder his partner the moment he returns.
Naturally.
Meanwhile, the partner in the village decides he wants the entire hoard for himself too, so he poisons the rice he's bringing back.
It's a perfect, lethal stalemate of self-interest.
Right. So the guy returns with the food, his partner instantly strikes him down with a sword, hides the body, and then sits down to eat the poisoned rice. He dies next to the treasure. It is a total wipeout. Misguided effort leads to complete annihilation.
It fundamentally challenges how we view rewards. We tend to believe that achieving our desires will bring equilibrium, right?
Yeah, that once we get the thing, we'll be happy.
But the Vedanta Jataka argues that unearned, sudden rewards actually dismantle our cognitive safeguards. The treasure wasn't a gift. It was an accelerant for the robber's pre-existing behavioral flaws.
And that concept of a reward acting as an accelerant for our flaws, it actually brings us to a distinct shift in the Jataka Tales narrative strategy.
Oh, yes. The animals.
Exactly. As we dig deeper into these sources, humans start vanishing from the text. They get replaced almost entirely by animals. We get peacocks, cranes, crabs, and mallards acting out these really complex psychological dramas.
Using an animal mirror is a highly efficient analytical tool.
How so?
Well, if you tell a story about a human king or a human merchant, the listener immediately brings their own socioeconomic baggage to the interpretation. They judge the character based on class or historical context or whatever societal norms they hold.
That makes sense. We bring our own bias.
Right. By stripping the humanity away and using animals, the authors isolate pure psychological traits. You are looking at the raw, unadulterated mechanism of vanity or the pure algorithm of deceit, functioning in a complete vacuum.
It makes a specific behavioral error just impossible to ignore, which is brilliantly executed in the Nakajataka, the story of the dancing peacock.
Oh, I love this one.
It's so good. We are looking at the paradox of success here. The king of the birds, who is a golden ballard, gathers a massive assembly in the Himalayas to allow his daughter to choose her own husband. She scans this huge crowd of swans and eagles, and she points to this visually stunning peacock with a jeweled neck. She chooses him.
So he has achieved the ultimate validation. He won the prize purely on his inherent merits. The objective is complete.
Completely done. But his brain just cannot handle the influx of status. The entire assembly congratulates him, and the peacock experiences this catastrophic surge of vanity.
He just can't help himself.
No. Instead of graciously accepting the marriage, he shouts, "You haven't seen my real power yet," and begins a frantic, wild dance right in the middle of the assembly. He throws his wings up, flips around, and completely exposes his backside to the entire crowd.
Which is a massive breach of avian modesty.
A huge faux pas. The golden mallard is disgusted, revokes the offer, and the peacock loses the bride.
We see this constantly in human behavior, though, the phenomenon of over-justification.
Really? Like what?
Well, the peacock had already secured the victory, but the validation triggered a desperate need to prove why he deserved it. His vanity demanded an audience, not just a partner.
Yeah, I see.
He sabotaged a structural victory because he just couldn't regulate his own ego in the funks of sudden elevation.
It's basically the ancient equivalent of talking yourself out of a job offer after they've already said yes, because you just couldn't stop bragging.
Exactly.
But, if vanity is accidental self-sabotage, the texts show us that deceit is a calculated cognitive blind spot. And we see the mechanics of a long con in the Bhakka Jataka, the tale of the deceiver deceived.
The crane in this story is an absolute masterclass in exploiting vulnerability.
He's ruthless.
He really is. He lives near a pond that is drying up, filled with all these anxious fish, but instead of hunting them outright, he plays a psychological game. He sits by the bank looking profoundly depressed, just projecting this false empathy.
Playing the long game.
Yeah. And when the fish ask what's wrong, he claims he is worried about their survival. Then he offers a solution. He tells them he will carefully carry them, one by one, to a massive, pristine lotus pond nearby.
Now, the fish are desperate, but they aren't entirely naive. They demand proof. So the crane takes one scout, this tough, one-eyed fish, flies him to the beautiful pond, lets him swim around, and brings him back.
Verifiable proof.
Right. The scout verifies the paradise, and suddenly, the entire population of the pond is begging the crane to transport them.
He successfully established his credibility through a verifiable micro-truth, and once that trust is locked in, he just exploits their desperation.
Yeah, he takes the fish one by one, but he never flies them to the lotus pond. He drops them into the fork of a varana tree, pecks them to death, and eats them. He systemically wipes out the entire pond until only a single crab remains.
And here's where the crane makes his fatal error.
Yep, the crane offers the same pitch to the crab. Let me fly you to the lotus pond, but the crab has a totally different physical architecture and therefore a different risk assessment. The crab insists that the crane's beak is too slippery and demands to hold onto the crane's neck with its claws instead.
And this is where the crane's cognitive decline becomes so evident. He has run the con so successfully on the fish that he assumes the crab is operating with the exact same level of gullibility.
Outcome bias, right?
Exactly. His past success with a predatory strategy completely blinds him to the new, distinct threat that the crab poses.
So the crane agrees, assuming it's just one last meal. He flies the crab straight to the varana tree. The crab looks down, sees the massive pile of fish bones, instantly deduces the con, and clamps his claws into the crane's neck like a vice.
That crab was not messing around.
Not at all. He forces the crane to walk down to the actual lotus pond, and once they arrive, the crab uses his claws to literally snip the crane's head clean off. It's a brutal mechanical conclusion.
But an inevitable one. The underlying insight here is that deceit requires a dangerous arrogance. This assumption that you will perpetually be the smartest entity in the room.
Which is never true forever.
Right. If your entire operational strategy relies on exploiting the trust of others, it is a statistical certainty that eventually you will offer a ride to a crab. The system self-corrects.
I love that. Eventually you will offer a ride to a crab. I want to shift our focus now to a theme in the sources that requires us to zoom out a bit and look at the actual people writing these texts.
This is an important context to set.
Yeah, because throughout the stack, especially in the Jataka Jataka and the Mudalakkhana Jataka, there is an intense, highly charged focus on women. The texts frequently portray female characters as avatars of wrath, treachery, and, the ultimate ruin of men.
We really have to approach this as a psychological data set from a highly specific environment. We are looking at narratives compiled by ascetic monks living in strict isolation.
Right, celibate monks in the ancient world.
Exactly. For them, the absolute pinnacle of human existence was achieving arahatship, which is total enlightenment and detachment from the material world. Consequently, their greatest existential terror was sensory input, specifically lust or physical desire.
So, The harsh framing isn't necessarily a commentary on women themselves, but rather, women serve as the ultimate, terrifying symbol of the material world's gravitational pull for these monks.
Yes. The monastic framework viewed desire not just as a bad habit, but as a literal spiritual contagion, a dopaminergic hijack that could instantly overwrite decades of discipline.
Which perfectly explains the sheer physiological shock in the Mudalakana Jataka. This is the story of an ascetic hermit living in the Himalayas who has achieved such an extreme level of spiritual purity that he unlocks transcendental supernatural
He
powers.
can fly.
He
Right.
can literally fly. He relocates to a king's royal garden and he meditates there perfectly for 16 years.
Hmm.
Then the king leaves to handle a border dispute and tasks his wife, Queen Gentleheart, with feeding the holy man.
Now, the hermit represents the absolute apex of cognitive control. He is completely walled off his sensory desires.
Right up until he hasn't. One morning, the hermit flies through the palace window to receive his meal. The queen hastily stands up to greet him, and her tunic slips, just for a fraction of a second.
A tiny slip.
But the text explicitly says that, in violation of morality, he gazed for pleasure's sake. He catches one glimpse of her beauty, and the biological override is instantaneous. He loses all his magical powers on the spot. The text describes him as plummeting like a crow with its wings clipped.
16 years of rigorous neural pathways, completely dismantled by a single millisecond of visual stimuli. It's wild.
He grabs his food, sprints back to his hut on foot, shoves the food under his bed, and just lies there paralyzed. For 7 days, he doesn't eat, he doesn't drink. He is essentially suffering a catastrophic withdrawal from a drug he didn't even know he was addicted to.
He is aflame with craving.
Yeah. The king returns, finds the hermit starving, and gets him to confess his desire for the queen. Surprisingly, the king tells the queen to handle it and temporarily gives her to the hermit.
And this is where the queen's intervention is just brilliant from a psychological perspective. She doesn't argue with his lust. Instead, she weaponizes the mundane reality of the material world against it.
Oh, she makes him work for it. The moment they leave the palace, she begins issuing relentless demands. She tells him to secure a house. The king deliberately assigns them a filthy, dilapidated outhouse.
Not exactly a romantic getaway.
No. The queen refuses to step inside. She forces this former flying mystic to grab a spade, shovel filth, plaster the walls with cow dung, haul water, and construct a bed. She subjects him to exhausting, unglamorous manual labor.
She breaks the dopamine loop. The hermit was trapped in this idealized fantasy projection of desire. By forcing him to engage in tedious physical labor, she grounds him in the abrasive friction of reality.
So the labor's doing something to his brain.
Exactly. Manual labor serves as a neural reset, forcing his higher cognitive functions to re-engage with his immediate environment.
And then comes the final snap. She grabs him by the whiskers, pulls his face close, and demands, "Hast thou forgotten that thou art a holy man and a Brahmin?"
That's powerful.
The physical shock of the labor combined with the direct challenge snaps him completely out of his trance. He realizes his craving had literally turned him into a slave shoveling dung. He instantly returns the queen to the king, regains his transcendental focus, and flies straight back to the Himalayas.
The story perfectly encapsulates the monastic terror. Unchecked desire forces you into servitude to the material world. Your agency is stripped away not by external forces, but by your own biological imperatives.
Okay, so if our baseline is this terrifyingly fragile, if we can be corrupted by merely standing near gold, if we sabotage our own success the moment we receive validation, and if 16 years of discipline can be erased by a single glance, how do these ancient texts suggest we actually build resilience? How do we survive our own psychology?
The overarching survival strategy presented in the sources is structural unity.
Structural unity.
Yeah, it's the concept that individual brilliance or singular discipline is inherently fragile, and only distributed network architecture can withstand a crisis.
Oh, I see. And we see this modeled perfectly in the Rukkhadhamma Jataka, the story of the interlaced forest. The Bodhisattva is a wise tree fairy advising his kin on where to establish their homes.
Right.
He urges them to build within the dense sal forest, where the roots and branches of thousands of trees are deeply woven together. But a faction of foolish fairies desires prestige. They want to be worshipped by humans, so they isolate themselves, building their homes in solitary, massive trees out in the open plains.
It's the pursuit of individual prestige over collective structural integrity. The solitary trees are undeniably impressive, but they stand as singular points of failure.
And then a massive localized tempest sweeps across the country. The mighty solitary trees take the absolute full force of the wind. Despite their thick trunks and deep individual roots, they snap. They are completely uprooted and destroyed.
But the interlaced forest,
The trees bend together, distributing the kinetic energy of the wind across the entire network. The storm passes over them and they remain entirely unharmed.
that physics of resilience translates directly into social dynamics in the Salmon of Jataka, the tale of the bickering quails.
Ah, yes.
A massive flock of quails is facing an existential threat from a human fowler who repeatedly throws a net over them.
Huh.
So the wise quail institutes a collective protocol. He instructs the flock. The moment the net falls, every single bird must poke its head through a mesh hole, flap in perfect unison, and lift the net into the sky.
It's brilliant.
They carry it to a thorn bush, snag the net on the thorns, and escape out the bottom.
It's an incredible display of coordinated problem solving, and they execute it flawlessly day after day. The fowler goes home empty-handed, but the fowler isn't actually worried. He tells his furious wife, they are cooperating right now, but wait until the micro-frictions start.
He understands the fragility of the social contract under sustained proximity. The system works perfectly until a tiny internal stressor is introduced.
And it doesn't take long. While feeding on the ground, one quail accidentally steps on another quail's head. It's an honest mistake, but the injured quail's ego is bruised. A petty argument erupts. Who stepped on my head? You think you're the only one carrying the weight of the net?
The ego rears its head again.
Exactly. The moment the fowler throws the net over them again, the macro collaboration shatters because of the micro friction. Instead of lifting, they argue, you lift it. No, you lift it. The net falls flat and the entire flock is captured and sold.
It's a sobering analysis of how quickly distributed networks fail when individual egos override the collective objective. You can be the most brilliant, talented, solitary tree in your industry, but without an interlaced support system, a single, unexpected tempest will uproot you.
It really challenges us to look at the architecture of our own lives. Are you building your career, your family, or your community in an open field of individualism, chasing prestige but standing completely exposed? Or are you actively intertwining your roots with others, absorbing the micro frictions to survive the macro storms?
We've covered an immense psychological landscape today, from the spatial mechanics of Nanda's sudden arrogance to the systemic collapse caused by the reigning treasure.
Yeah, we've watched the peacock's vanity destroy his success, and the crane's arrogance lead directly to the crab's claws.
And we've seen how a hermit's 16-year discipline can be dismantled in a second, reinforcing the absolute necessity of that interlaced forest.
It is a profound reminder that the human operating system hasn't changed in thousands of years. The bugs in our software are exactly the same. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final stark image from the sources that builds on everything we've discussed about who we led into our interlaced forest. It comes from the Makasa Jataka.
A brief, brutal observation on the nature of intentions versus outcomes.
There is a bald carpenter diligently working on a piece of wood. A mosquito lands on his shining scalp and bites him. The carpenter's son, sitting nearby, sees this and wants to protect his father. He is filled with genuine, helpful intent.
He wants to fix the problem.
Right. He yells, "I'll get it, Dad." The son grabs a massive razor-sharp axe, swings it with all his might to kill the mosquito, and cleaves his father's skull completely in two.
The Bodhisattva watches this catastrophic failure of judgment and delivers a chilling conclusion. Sense-lacking friends are worse than foes with sense.
An enemy with sense is predictable, right? You can defend against them. But a fool who thinks they are helping you can bypass all your defenses and strike the fatal blow.
It's terrifying when you really think about it.
Well, as you step back into the chaotic, muddy reality of your own life today, take a hard look at your interlaced forest. Look at the people you've allowed into your inner circle. Ask yourself, who in your life is trying to help you by wielding an axe?
A deeply unsettling but absolutely vital question to ask.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the psychological bedrock of the Jataka Tales. We hope you keep exploring the hidden mechanics in these ancient texts. Keep your roots intertwined, watch out for the sudden windfalls, and whatever you do, don't offer a ride to a crab. We'll see you next time.